All right, welcome back to the Tectonic Takes podcast. I know we just got started, but the Quakes just won 4-0 to Real Salt Lake. If that's not worth a like, subscribe, comment, share with your friends, I don't know what it is. But hopefully we'll earn it beyond that in the next however many minutes we're talking about this game. I don't have to ask, but I'll do it anyway. Abram, how are you?
So usually we do this. I'm like, I'm doing great. I'm caffeinated. I am not caffeinated. The line for the coffee section at the gas station was too full, and my coffee machine here at home is broken. So we're doing this. We're raw dogging this episode. I have some Jamaica in a Pepsi cup. Maybe that'll help. But the Quakes win definitely is energizing, and I'm very excited to discuss that with you.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about this lineup because it starts with some bold decisions made by Bruce Arena. As you
I'm sorry, go
theorize,
ahead.
anyone who followed preseason was expecting. The 3-5-2 formation came out, so we got our first look at that in MLS play. Daniel and net. We had the back three of Rodriguez, Dave Romney, and Bruno Wilson. Christian Espinoza on the right, Jamar Ricketts on the left, and a midfield three of Ian Harkes, Hernan Lopez, and most surprisingly, Bo LaRue, and then, of course, Christian Espinoza and Joseph Martinez starting up top. So, Abram, walk us through what you thought when you saw those lineups, along with immense joy of the town players that you saw starting on opening day.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that when I first saw the lineups, you usually get handed the sheet. I wasn't handed one because I was talking out and about, and I was sitting next to the window, so they didn't give me a sheet. So I saw on my phone on OneFootball, my app that I use, I saw Jamar Ricketts on the lineup. I was like, whoa, that's huge, because he's never had an MLS start before. And he was playing in preseason, but like a lot of people were playing in preseason, so can't say for sure. And I was so caught up in that I didn't even notice that Bo LaRue was starting in center midfield. So that was very exciting. I was tweeting all over the place more than I usually do. I was talking to the Casey Casliner. He's working with Quakes Epicenter right now, but we like to connect about the town. He's been on the show before to talk about the town with me, and I was like, Casey, come over here. And Jamar's starting, and we're very excited about that. No, and they both did really, really well. Everyone's really excited about them, so I couldn't be happier.
Yeah, this was just a dream start in many ways. It was a dream start literally for both of them. Regardless of what happened in this match, you never forget your first MLS starts and momentous occasions such as this. So, yeah, that's pretty much sums up how this whole night felt. Everything kind of clicked. It was a dream match. It was a dream 90 minutes. And I couldn't help but hum the theme to Yu-Gi-Oh! GX when I saw the young kids starting. Generation Next. Come on and get your game on. And they got their game on. They both played very well. Yeah, there's your random reference you weren't expecting when you clicked on this video.
We need at least two more by the end of this episode.
Two more? Okay. Usually comes naturally to me, but now that you've put that pressure on me, we'll see.
I don't know.
But also, an interesting development was the bench. So we'll just run through the names here. Earl Edwards Jr., Daniel Mooney, Max Floriani. So that was great, our super draft pick. Nick Lima, Vitor Costa. Mark Anthony Kaye was an interesting one. I believe he was the player that Bo LaRue probably took his place there in the starting lineup. And, of course, he came on at halftime for LaRue. Amal Pellegrino, Useni Buddha, Preston Judd. The biggest missing name there was Nico Sakiris. And then, of course, Jack Skane's probably the next most experienced player that didn't make this match day roster. And immediately that caught a lot of people's eyes as the lineup sheets were being passed around. But you caught a little bit of information from the press conference about Bruce Arena projecting Nico Shakiris' role with this team, right?
Yeah, I also want to mention before I get into that, Palmery was another notable, exclusion from that, lineup. He's been a very, helpful servant to the club. He could play both sides, so that was, to me,
Yeah,
strained.
you're right.
But I understand because there's a lot of positions in this kind of lineup, so you have to have one of each or maybe two of every type of player. But into the what Bruce said about Nico, it was very interesting. So Jeff Carlisle, obviously a very well respected reporter,
Yes.
he was actually sitting next to me, and I was like, okay, don't do anything wrong. Don't embarrass yourself in front of Jeff. You're gonna look bad. Um, but Jeff asked, why Nico was left off, and Bruce. I didn't understand when our guest Greg a few episodes ago was saying that like Bruce likes to tell you everything and nothing all at the same time. This happened in front of me. He was like basically like Jeff was asking like, was it like a injury? Is it Bruce cut him off completely? It was like, Nico's a very good player for the club. He's gonna spend a lot of time here. He's gonna be here for a long time. He's a great player, very young, good player. That doesn't tell you anything. It doesn't tell you if it's a form thing, a system thing, injury, nothing, right? You would agree. So like that leaves a lot to the imagination of what he could mean. It could mean that his training hasn't been up to par, or that he doesn't like how he fits in the system, because he wasn't on the injury report. So who's to say?
Yeah, I think that when you're looking at the midfielders that did play, Bolaru was a bit of a wild card, but he's for sure earned his place in the team going forward. Ian Harkes, he likes Ian Harkes. Bruce has relied on him in his past stop at New England Revolution, and obviously you're going to have the main engine room there in Hernan Lopez. So, but to not even be on the bench was definitely an eyebrow raiser. But I don't think that necessarily means the door is closed, because Bruce Arena is clearly a fan of the young players. He's brought through some incredible young players to trust them in starting role, and they perform well. So they rewarded his trust. And ever since his earliest days as a soccer coach, that he's not afraid to play young players. It sounds ridiculous to say now because we know what Landon Donovan and DeMarcus Beasley have accomplished in their careers. But during the 2002 World Cup, they were the youngest players on the roster. So Bruce Arena playing them as much as he did, it showed immense faith in them. So if he's pro young players, he's going to be pro Nico Shakiris, unless Nico Shakiris may not fit the system. So there's a lot of pieces of the puzzle that we don't know. But I feel like last season, pretty much anyone who is able-bodied and ready to go, okay, congratulations, you made the matchday squad, regardless of whether you were good or not. I don't want to talk disparagingly about certain players from last season, but it did feel like there were certain players on the bench that if we were to rely on them, were we going to expect an instant energy lift? Or were we going to expect a dip in quality? Those were the questions that were being asked. And probably that was the vibe with maybe one sub in particular from last game, but overall, all the subs came in and did their job fairly well. A few moments here and there that maybe you wish went differently, but I feel like if we have multiple players that are capable of being squad players, have given the Quakes good minutes, given the Quakes good performances, and excel in certain areas among the squad that aren't making our top 20 on a given day, I feel like all the moves that were made in the offseason have resulted in better depth.
Sorry, what was the last word you said? I
Depth.
cut out. Depth, yeah. I mean, with the all the new acquisitions, we did let a lot of guys go, but none. I
A
don't want to say
few
Jack
that needed to
Mule.
be replaced, mainly a Bobasi.
Yeah, they needed to be replaced. Like everyone who left, mostly everyone who left, kind of needed to go. They were ready to move on, and we brought in a lot of guys who were like, not I wouldn't say MLS proven in terms of like, oh, they won championships. We did bring in those guys, but a lot of the guys we brought in from like New England, for example, are just like solid middle of the road MLS guys, who can do a job. Um, personally, I think that Nico is probably as good as Ian Harkes, but Bruce knows what he's getting from Ian Harkes, and
Right.
that's the difference there. You know?
And if you're looking strictly at like the midfielders, because maybe you're not sacrificing a Muni or a Floriani for another midfielder, you still have to have some semblance of structure in your bench too. But he already has four really good center midfield options there. And while there's not a lot of Quakes fans that are big fans of Mark Anthony Kaye, he performed well in his 45 minutes in the second half. Again, like Harkes, Kaye is someone that Bruce Arena knows well. So if he trusts LaRue, he trusts Lopez, he trusts Harkes, he trusts Kaye, and he's sticking with four center midfielders in his squad. Again, if you're running with three center midfielders, maybe you have a second one on the bench, and maybe you sacrifice a fullback or center back. But I feel like that does provide some more competition than Nico Sekiris has had previously, even if we're still ruling out some of the other players like Carlos Greza that he had to contend with previously.
Yeah, and I also want to mention that uh, when you look at the lineup on One Football or wherever it is, you see a 3-5-2 with like
Huh?
the midfield in a straight line across the field, but Hernan Lopez is in the center of that. He, in reality, is playing much higher. He is
Yeah.
almost a forward.
Like a
Um,
3-4-1-2.
yeah, exactly. That's how I would describe it. How I prefer to describe it. But
Yeah.
in the
Reminds me
second
of
half,
those 3-4-1-2s in the 2014 World Cup where like Pirlo was playing behind a pair of strikers for Italy.
yeah, exactly. It's a commonly used formation. It was my favorite formation back in like FIFA 15 around there. But I was saying is that when we took off Hernan Lopez and brought in Buda Pellegrino, and it changed the shape of the front unit. So whereas Hernan was stepping up to be kind of like a pseudo forward, then Buda and Pellegrino and Chicho became an actual front three, more traditional, where they're staying up more often and like there's like half wingers, like they're not going as wide as the wing backs are going, but they are staying up to provide, options up front. And so you wouldn't say that Buda was a midfielder in this game. It was very much a traditional front three after Hernan Lopez was taken off. So we did see a slight change of formation, but really, but if you're talking about the philosophy of how we played, it remained very similar because Hernan started so high up to begin with.
Right. But let's talk a little bit about our opponents here. So Real Salt Lake, we felt like they were going to pose more of a challenge. And in some ways, they did pose a challenge, particularly in that first half. It kind of fell apart in the second half for them. They started Rafael Cabral. They're dealing with a back injury with Zach McMath, their preferred starter there. The left half of their defense with Justin Glad and Alexandros Katranis was definitely a stronger half. With the likes of Javon Brown and Philip Quinton, you have more journeyman type MLS players there. Then you had a midfield two of Nelson Palacio, Brian Ojeda, Tyler Wolf on the right. And by the way, next week we're playing Sporting Kansas City. They played against the other Wolf, Owen Wolf. Pablo Ruiz at Cam, Diego Luna on the left, and Forster at Jago up top. We saw a little bit of Diego Concalves and Dominic Marshuk. Those were like the notable subs that they brought in. Otherwise, they brought in a lot of defensive substitutions beyond that. Or I don't even know if they brought in Marshuk. They definitely brought in Concalves because I remember Anelli, Hunqua, and Hidalgo. So they made four of their five substitutions were defensive, whereas when we were in the lead, which was in the entirety of the second half, Bruce Arena made the more aggressive substitutions. So we're kind of rewarding that. But the biggest issue with Real Salt Lake that allowed the Earthquakes to get away with a few moments here and there was that Diego Luna was taking a lot of shots, and most of them were off target. This felt like a high percentage 3-point shooter in basketball having an off night, and we were a bit lucky there. I think that was one of the main concerns I had with this Quakes performance going forward, but it's also a little bit nitpicky. There was also the Alexandra Catrana shot at the end of the first half that Daniel had to make a big save. But yeah, I feel like Real Salt Lake, they showed that they really need another striker, and you know, a big reason why is because we got their star striker from last season.
Mhm. No, I mean they definitely miss him. When you're looking at how RSL attacked, and I almost said how Diego Luna attacks because that's kind of their team,
Yeah,
in my opinion. If you watch the game, he is doing everything.
he was doing everything
Incredible
for
player.
them. He was building up the attack, and that's
I
why
want
he
to
felt
give
the need to take so many of those shots. Continue.
I want to give credit. I can't believe how good he is. He feels like a DP from Europe player playing here. And he is like homegrown from this league. He is very advanced, incredible
Maybe he
player.
feels like the European influence because he came through one of the Barcelona Academy outposts in Arizona.
Yeah, that's right. Um, but so you were saying about the high shot percentage, high shot
Miss
rate. It,
percentage, like he
yeah,
looked
it was bad.
dangerous
Yeah,
until the shot flew every other direction besides toward Daniel on occasion. The
you're
Katrana shot
right.
was the best shot they had in that first half, maybe for the entire game. I know Daniel had to make another big save late. I forget who made that shot, but yeah, it was just
Mhm.
that was the biggest issue. And then on the other end, the Earthquakes were super clinical. But yet, when you look at the XG, Quakes were 2.6 XG, Real Salt Lake were 2.5. So that was the difference in this game. Earthquakes took their opportunities, starting with Bo LaRue setting up Jamar Ricketts with help with the Chichorango dummy. And that was something that balls weren't bouncing the right way for the Quakes a lot of times last season, but
Yeah.
they took their opportunities.
No, for sure. And I want to say XG is a really fickle thing.
It
We,
is.
we we say XG, and then people don't understand what that means. It doesn't mean that's how many goals we're expected to score. It's just a whole different thing, And I think with how close Pellegrino got when he, kind of got his way past the goalkeeper and past the defender, he's just kind of scrambling to get it past the goal line. That probably is like 0.91 xg right there with how close he was to scoring. It's crazy he didn't score it.
Yeah.
It seems like it could have been offside, so I'm not gonna rant too much about Pellegrino. He was off balance. It was really hard to score, but from that position, which is what xg is calculating, that's probably adding a lot of xg in our favor, even though he missed it. um I also wanted to say, Ivan, with I was talking with Bobby. He was sitting next to me. We had a whole like seating chart, kerfuffle up there. But uh, Bobby and I were sitting next to each other, and he was saying like, "Wow, like this defense, I'm kind of worried about them because we can't get to the second ball. We're clearing it, but then RSL is always on the second ball,
They have
and
some tall players. A lot of times when Daniel was distributing his goal kicks or his clearances, it would go as far as Justin Glad, and he would get a lot of those balls.
right, but what I'm trying to the picture I'm trying to paint is when they would play a ball into our box, one of the three center backs would get it out, and then they would receive possession back. And so they're struggling to break into our box. What else do? You shoot from outside, which is where you're getting the ball. That's where they had their possession. They had a chokehold on us for probably about 10 minutes where they would just like we would clear it out of the box, they would get it back, and then look to do something with it. And it was really frustrating. Ruiz is another really good player who was linking up with Luna a lot, but they couldn't do it on their own. I think that their trip to Costa Rica was kind of detrimental to their performance. I don't know if I said this to you, but I truly believe this. I think the Quakes played well, but in my opinion, I think that RSL kind of threw this game away, not on purpose, but
Oh, of course not.
Bruce himself said it wasn't a 4-0 game.
Mhm.
He said that like this game should have been a lot closer, but they kind of fell apart. They didn't hold their shape as well as they should have, and a lot of things bounced our way. We have to be honest about that because it doesn't happen a lot. Um, So yeah, I mean, a lot to be positive about, but we do have to be realistic and keep our eyes on what's actually happening.
Yeah, so we had three Quakes players make the team of the week or team squad of the week to
Yeah.
include players on the bench. Daniel Rodriguez and Christian Espinoza. Espinoza had a hat trick of assists. Rodriguez had a goal of his own. But some of those key matches that kept Real Salt Lake at bay, those key moments, were uh, Forcer at Jago pirouetting, but Rodriguez, cool as you like, he dispossesses him. Espinoza had a few key defensive moments. He had a really strong challenge on Diego Luna around the 22nd minute mark, where he was able to just pick his pocket there. And then there was another one 5 minutes later where Espinoza draws a foul trying to play out of danger. So if he knows that if he can't get a clean pass, he knows how to work his magic and get the defender to take the bait, and he's able to relieve some pressure there. So all four goals were spectacular. There were a lot of team goals. There's a lot of contributions from a lot of unlikely sources regarding the goal scorers, but those key defensive moments in that first half, where the biggest error defensively was definitely the foul that was maybe 6 inches outside the 18-yard box. Abram, I think that even might be generous.
6 inches, I don't know. It was very close. Are you referring to the Marcelo Ruiz free kick that was then resulted in a volley from I can't name the player, but it ended up
Pablo
being pretty
Ruiz,
close.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, Ruiz took the free kick and then it bounced back, and then somebody got the volley off after that. That turned out to be pretty close, but
Pablo Ruiz, sorry. Abel
Pablo.
Ruiz. I got my Ruizes mixed up. If we keep
It's
going,
it's
I might say Brian Ruiz, the Costa Rican player that's probably retired now.
we're all Quicks fans here, and that's who's going to be watching this. So I don't think they're too upset about us calling the other players different names. I think it's all good.
Yeah. Uh, my halftime thoughts were that the Earthquakes were teetering on a tightrope a little bit, but thanks to that brilliant goal that comes from the MLS Next Pro setup, that we were able to bring advantage into the first half. So tell me about that goal, Abram, that got things started.
I mean, it was a very they work on that on the training ground. Like uh, Crystal Quadra, she asked in the Discord, should we take anything away from the fact that mostly defenders scored? And what I would say is that wingbacks are effective. That's what I would say. So when the ball was on the far right, Christian Espinoza had the ball, and their whole team shifted over because Espinoza is a very scary player to let him have space and time on the ball. So they shifted over to make sure and try and nullify him. Bolaru makes a run in the half space, gets the ball from Espinosa, and the way that LaRue had been playing up to this point, he's been playing very shy and a little bit safe, which makes total sense. If it's your first MLS start, you would be too. But this time, he turns his body and goes straight towards the box. He's going to attack and try and find a goal and make something happen. And then at that point, Jamar Ricketts says that he knows that he has to crash the far post.
Right.
And so Bolaru plays a ball down low through the center, across the penalty box, across the penalty spot. Excuse me. And then Chicho looks like he wants it, but it's not quite set up for him. It's not perfect for him to take a shot. He has a great right foot, but even his balance would have been off. He might have skied it. So he lets it go for Jamar Ricketts, who is crashing the back post like he's supposed to be doing, and that does end up in the first MLS goal for Jamar Ricketts, which is an awesome moment for him.
The one thing that kind of decreased the level of surprise that he was the one to score the goal was his run that he made in the first 5 minutes of the game, where he was able to get as far as the 18-yard box, where he was very adventurous. He made a really good run. Sure, he was dispossessed shortly after, but I thought that was really effective, and that really plays into the skill set. He's super athletic, he's super fast, he's super technical. He's really built for this wingback role. I think that he is embracing this opportunity.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw the press conference, Ivan. I did tell you a lot about it, but I told that to him. I was like, well, I've seen you play for the town. I didn't say this, but I watched him play for the town, and I know what he can do. It feels like this the wing back role is like perfect for him. It looks like it's made for a player that has all the attributes that he has. And I said, with that in mind, do you think that this could be a breakout season? And before I even finished my sentence, he almost, cut me off and was like, "Yes, I do." And he's very confident, and I think that confidence is going to bring him very far if he can continue to pull off good performances. And I'll tell you this, Quicks fans, if you're not watching the town, you don't know that he has a lot more in store for us. He's a very skillful player. He did do that run like you mentioned, but for the town, I've seen him dribble past, do Neymar moves and do all tactical stuff. He seemed a bit nervous and a bit starstruck. He was on the pitch with better players than he's ever faced in his life before.
Yeah.
On this occasion,
Says
but
a
he
lot
still looked
about
really
this
good.
town that for a while the player that we were raving the most about, and he'll probably get his time to shine at some point, was Oscar Verhoeven. And now we have multiple other players that are getting the opportunities and excelling in this next step up. So you've told us that it's going to be a different looking town side because of how much we're relying on them now for the San Jose Earthquakes, but it's a good sign of things to come.
For sure. I mean, I'm really interested to see what happens with that because Nico Chikaris could definitely go back down with the town. He's we have the ability to do that. I don't know if I want that per se. I'd really like him to stay with the first team, but with Bo LaRue playing like he is, um, I don't know. It's a really competitive sport, so we'll have to see.
Yeah. I think that the first 25 minutes of the second half were a little bit nervy. I think Real Salt Lake had a bit of a spell of possession where it felt like there might be a momentum swing. There's a key Daniel save in the 63rd minute, and Espinoza was able to clear it out of danger for a corner. So, once again, Espinoza just covering every blade of grass in that game. While Ricketts was the in stadium player of the match, a lot of sites were rating Christian Espinoza the most highly rated player of the match. But either way, like you can't go wrong with either of them. But then the 70th minute came. Rodriguez was able to score off a corner, and just wanted to address some of these other comments from our Tectonic Takes community over in Discord. Martin said Ricketts was a standout, plus all the substitutes committed. So yeah, big buy-in from a lot of players that weren't getting a lot of minutes last season. We'll see how it goes this season, but that was good energy off the bench. And Nestor also mentioned that the three center backs played well together. Hameen was very high on Ricketts' performance, as well as Buda's role in how incredible that third goal of the game was for him. So, yeah, thank you for all of these great contributions for all of our friends, all our community members. We're really thankful for that. But, yeah, second half, everything was just clicking.
For sure. I mean, Ricketts was still doing his job down that left hand side, but I think that it was in the second half where Espinosa really started to find his groove. And I mean that ball over to Buda, he tried that like a few minutes prior, but then this time it actually ended up getting over the defender. On that alone, to me, it makes him man of the match. Like that it was a Beckham esque cross right to Buda's feet. Buda was almost surprised that he got it. Um, but it was a really good finish, and that's something that I've personally come to expect from Buda. When he was with Quicks too, I think he still holds the record for most goals per minute. He was an incredible player for the town, or for Quicks too. Actually, never played for the town, funnily enough. But incredible player. Happy to see him getting recognition more than anything else. I don't think people really realize how good he was because like you said, nobody watches them on the next pro except for me and a handful of other sickos. But it was the second half. They fell apart, but we also took full advantage of that. We came on strong for sure.
Yeah, The other only nitpicky thing I could think of is Hark's got a yellow card. He would have gotten away with the foul. It wasn't a yellow card foul, but what he did was he prevented the free kick from being taken quickly. So that has to be cleaned up. I'm sure it will be. But there was two sequences late in this game that summed up both teams' performances. So Victor Costa comes on for Ricketts and immediately scores. So Quakes summed up there. And then Diego Luna gets frustrated when a foul isn't called on him. He gets so frustrated with the ref that he gets a yellow card, and that sums up Real Salt Lake's night. They will go as Diego Luna goes. This might be the low point for Diego Luna this entire season in terms of his offensive involvement, but he's going to have better games ahead. But San Jose Earthquakes were able to do enough right things in key moments to earn this win, and they needed this. They needed a win as soon as possible this season to flush out the stench of last season, to renew the faith in San Jose Earthquake supporters, the 17,000 that were in attendance, that they were going to be much better this season. That is without a doubt now. And we'll see how many people show up for our next home game. We're on the road for Sporting Kansas City. I think that it's going to be a good turnout for Minnesota United because now that they've seen this performance, that this team is worth keeping your eye on and attending games and watching them play.
Yeah, for sure. My girlfriend's nephew, he's gonna be coming to his first Clicks game, this season, and I'm excited for that because if I was bringing him last season, I'd kind of be nervous to show him because like I don't want to like this team. I like Inter Miami, Messi's on that team because we were so bad last year. But with this early start to form and the players that we have, the quality that we have, I think that it's going to be really exciting to show him. I feel a lot more confident about it. That he's going to see something worth coming to the stadium for.
Yeah. The stat of the game for me is the shots to shots on goal. So Real Salt Lake, 21 shots total, 7 on goal, so 33%. San Jose Earthquakes, 14 shots, 9 on goal. That's close to 70%. That is very efficient, and that's the kind of efficiency you need. It's what you expect with the top quality strikers Arango and Martinez are, but also everyone getting in on the act there.
Yeah, I mean, Arango was really unlucky to not get a goal himself. It was a really nice play with Hernan Lopez and Espinosa. They have a really good chemistry, and what's his name? Christian was making a wide run around the defender.
Uh-huh.
Hernan saw that, put the ball into the box, and he ran on. Christian then ran onto it, saw Chicho alone, gave it to Chicho. Chicho was a beautiful finish, but in the process of making that wide run, Christian was offside when the ball was passed, so it didn't end up counting. But that would have been really interesting to see how RSL. And if it looked like he was about to celebrate. He looked like unsure about whether or not it was going to be given,
Mm-hmm.
but you can't really say for sure what was going to happen there.
Yeah. And I guess another theme of this game was defensive players making offensive contributions and vice versa because there was a goal kick from Rafael Cabral that Hernan Lopez was able to block and pick off and then carry on. So, if it wasn't the offensive production you were expecting from some of these threats, that's what you're hoping for, that other players can pick up the slack. This is very much total football esque from Bruce Arena, channeling his inner Johan Cruyff here with players playing positionless soccer.
Exactly, and the more I guess current reference to total football is probably Ted Lasso. If you watch that show, and it's like when he had his dream with all the hallucinations. We're doing that. You know what I mean?
So looking forward to this Saturday's Earthquakes game. This first matchup saw Bruce Arena go up against a coach that he coached himself, Pablo Mastroeni, part of that 2002 U.S. Men's National Team World Cup roster. But now we got OG versus OG. when you talk about MLS history, it's impossible to do so without talking about Bruce Arena and Peter Vermes. Of course, Peter Vermes not quite as decorated. He does have an MLS Cup from back in 2013, but looking at this Sporting Kansas City side that lost 1-0 to Austin, so again, this may be another striker challenge side, although I feel like a bit of a low bar. Sorry for Sarajago, but William Agada is probably going to be a tougher challenge in the striker department. He's a young Nigerian striker, young, 25 years old. Young for us, but he's
Yeah.
decent age for a soccer player. But the rest of their attacking options, aside from 19-year-old Jacob Bartlett that started that game, all familiar names from the Sporting Kansas City team last season. Nemanja Radoja and Memo Rodriguez in the midfield, Eric Tommy on the left wing, and Daniel Shalawi. Not a fan, of course. He's had a few choice words for Sounds Earthquakes in past encounters, but he's still one of the key players for Sporting Kansas City. Their only injury is Kyrie Shelton, who he's not really a threat, but he's out with a hamstring injury. We won't see him. Some of their other key players off the bench, Magomed Suleimanov, who's a Russian winger. They got Steven Afrifa, the Canadian international. Those are probably the two ones that, of course, probably should start this game if it weren't for their importance on the CONCACAF Champions Club. Their big acquisition, Dejan Joveljic from LA Galaxy. So what are your thoughts going into this game in Children's Mercy Park, Kansas City, Kansas, not Missouri?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very curious what the weather is going to be like, because it was very bad for the
Very
Messi
cold
game,
for that Inter Miami game. Yeah.
and it's not. I call it the Messi game, yeah, the Inter Miami game. They're
Yeah.
basically Messi FC.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, we're not too far removed from that in terms of time passed, and so it could be, around that temperature. I mean, yeah, I don't know. We'd have to, get a meteorologist on the show, and I don't know if we have the budget for that. But I think that Sporting Kansas City has always had our number, so to speak. They've been really difficult for us to, play
Especially in the
against.
playoffs, but even in the regular season too.
For sure. And, I think that it's a benefit to us that they don't have Bolido on their team anymore, because he is always finding a way to score against us. But Joveljic isn't much better for us. He's I think, a
He
better
has a big
striker
goal
in
scoring
MLS.
record
But
against us. It's ridiculous.
yeah, so Daniel Joveljic is going to be a very scary player to play against. I don't know how he did in the previous game, but his second game in MLS for that team. It's I never am excited to play against Dejan Joveljic. So yeah, it's just going to be tough. It's going to be a really big test for Arena and the rest of the squad.
And there's been a bit of a changing of the guard in terms of some of their veterans. Of course, Graham Zusi retired after the 2023 season. A big change for them in goal is Tim Melia retired at the end of the 2024 season. Similar to Polito and Joveljic, we're not necessarily sad that he's not going to be playing this game. We wish him a happy retirement, great career, but another player that turns into Manuel Neuer whenever he plays against us.
Yeah, not gonna miss him, but I hope he has a good time. But don't come back.
Yeah. The backup, John Polskamp, he got the nod in their first game. He only conceded the one goal, so decent-ish performance there. Similar to Real Salt Lake, the left side of their back four is probably the stronger. Robert Volader and Logan Ndembe. I think Logan Ndembe, he's another quality fullback. I'd probably put Katranis ahead of him, but not by much. So we're going to have to keep an eye out for him. This is going to be another stern test. I feel like if it plays out similarly to the Real Salt Lake game, I feel like depending on how they rotate and how they're able to manage bodies, that they're going to close down spaces a little bit more efficiently. But the question is, do they have the personnel to put the ball in the back of the net if they're going to rely on Joveljic having to come off the bench at halftime? 45 minutes of Joveljic going to be enough of an upgrade from the attacking standpoint to cause problems for our defense? The answer is probably going to be yes. We got to be aware where that man is at all times, even when he's on the bench. Have someone marking him on the bench. But I think that it's going to be a really interesting challenge. Sporting Kansas City, on paper, probably one of the worst teams in the Western Conference. Some people have them playoff teams. Some people have them flowing them toward the bottom. They were near the bottom in last season's standings, but hey, so were we. So we can't look past anybody.
Yeah, I never try to predict where Sporting is going to be. They're like that. Like even with the same personnel, they could have really up times, really low times. Just they're a team with a lot of grit, and it feels like Russell has been on that team for 15 years. It feels like was born there. It seems like they have a really strong core that they keep using.
Yeah, they're not usually big shifters of players coming in and out, but I think Johnny Russell is another player who I don't think he's officially retired, but he's at least a free agent. But he racked up 196 appearances for Sporting Kansas City in MLS play, 60 goals. So for a winger to score a goal almost once every 3 games, that's a good return. And yeah, another player that I feel like we always have to look out for, at least when he was a Sporting Kansas City player. Definitely throughout the existence of this podcast the last 4 years, I'm always like dreading Johnny Russell whenever we've played Sporting Kansas City.
Right. So yeah, it's going to be a really tough match because like I said, I can't really predict what they're going to do. They could have a terrible game where they're just not on it, or they can just really give us a spanking. Like it's happened both ways before.
My tectonic take is that this game is probably going to be. The Quakes are going to score 2 goals, but I can't
Okay.
necessarily tell what's going to happen beyond that. My mind is telling me either a 2-1 win or 2-2 draw. I think there's going to be obviously an offensive regression. They're going to score 4 goals every game. Who knows? Maybe they'll prove me wrong. Let that be your motivation. Put that clip as your bulletin board material and prove me wrong. Score 4 goals every game. That'd be great. But I think that we're going to have to grind it out a little bit more. And this game was still a grind at times against Real Salt Lake. Do you have a tectonic take or like a win condition for the Earthquakes in this one?
I think that I don't know. Like you're asking me to predict, and I'm like I can't predict anything.
It doesn't have to
As
be a
good
score
people.
prediction. What's
Yeah,
something you're looking
but
forward to? You know.
uh, I think that when you're facing a back three like we have, your village is for me as someone who I'm not a coach or anything, but I play a lot of FIFA. If I was facing our back line, I would be thankful to have someone like Jovic on my team because he's a very mobile forward who has a lot of tools in his toolkit, and so he might not be able to beat three big center backs physically, but on the ground, outmaneuvering, outpacing. I think he's definitely capable of that. So I think that
He's
this is
five
going to
foot
be really tough.
eleven. So for a normal person, that's like
Not small,
kind
but
of
we
high.
have big center backs. We have
We
pretty
have big
big center
center
backs.
backs, but also from the Serbian national team. I know Jovic is not necessarily Serbian national team quality. He could be, but that national team is full of giants in comparatively. Maybe not to the extent of a Netherlands or a Sweden or a Germany, but there's usually 6'1", 6'2" guys all around. So that's usually why maybe I think that he's taller than he is, because most times when I watch Serbians play, they're among the tallest players in the field.
Yeah, I also noticed that. I believe that that's another reason to fear him is the little bit of height that he does have. Not quite 6 foot, but it's tall enough. Chicho has a lot of headed goals as well, and he's a pretty small guy. I believe 5'9" around there. Specifics doesn't matter, but no, he's the one I'm really scared of playing because he likes to score against us, and I think that if I was going to choose a forward to face our defense, he would be one of them.
Yeah.
So, not excited for that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting looking at the attacking options and how they match up with us defensively. I think if we can be more physical, if we can mark them tightly, William Agata and Eric Tomey are both 5'9". Daniel Shalhoub would be more of a physical challenge. I imagine that Daniel Shalhoub is going to get into it with someone in a corner kick, free kick situation. It's bound to happen. If that guy escapes without either getting fouled or a yellow card in this game, something went completely different than expected. But we have excitement. We have things to look forward to as San Jose Earthquakes fans, which is something that we didn't really have for months last season. The main difference between this game, this 4-0 win over Real Salt Lake, versus the 5-0 win over Necaxa in the Leagues Cup, besides the obvious, just that the Necaxa game definitely felt like a blip in the radar, whereas like the Earthquakes game, you can point to so many things that we can build on positively.
Right, and there's a lot of new faces to be excited about. And, there's a lot of narratives to be written still so far.
Yeah, and it's very important. It felt like we were kind of left aside in the party last year where Oakland Roots made the playoffs, Bay FC made the playoffs, Oakland Soul had another very impressive season. So,
The
in terms of
town made the playoffs.
yeah, Town made the playoffs. Like Bay Area soccer is in a really good space, providing pathways for local talent as well as bringing in a diaspora of incredible players from across the world, and that's what the Bay Area is. It's a fusion of culture that permeates through every aspect of our soccer communities. But now we have a culture of winning, so we got to keep that going. I know it sounds a lot to say that in just one game, but hey, look at the scoreboard. We're top of the league. We had to sneak that in there, right?
You have
It's
to.
not the count.
Right, exactly.
I think that's our cue to wrap things up. Abram, you got anything to plug for us? Where can people follow you?
I'm still in the process of making my Blue Sky account. I mean, I have
You
the
already
account,
have
but
made it.
yeah, I have made it, but I haven't completed. I don't want you guys to see it yet. I don't. It's not
Oh, him
ready.
on Blue Sky. Okay,
um,
you're still cleaning up,
right. But you can go ahead and follow my Twitter at el_bambastic with an A, bambastic. Um, that's where I cover soccer right now. I also want to plug our Discord. I'm going to
Yeah.
ask Devin to leave a link to the Discord. We've had a lot of new people joining in and joining the discussion. It's a beautiful place. I'm super happy and proud to be, in the Discord and being like, I own the thing. So I'm really happy about that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely come join us.
And I'll be writing an article for every Sounds of Earthquakes match I attend. I plan to be at the Minnesota game, as well as other big matches that either I can't attend or if they're road matches. It won't be all 34, but I will be covering the Quakes through this podcast as well as through my articles. So it's not just going to be talking about European soccer with my blog. It's going to be representing Bay Area soccer. So you'll see some Oakland Roots stuff there, mostly through Roots blog, but I'll post some Oakland Roots stuff through that article space as well. And I post all my articles both on my Blue Sky and on my Twitter. And as much as I'm having more fun overall on Blue Sky these days. The exception has definitely been Quake's Twitter. You guys have been giving us a lot of great support on Twitter, so we'll keep our presence going there, and we'll just try to ignore everything else that's happening, like the dog in the house on fire.
I love that analogy.
All right, there we go. So it's the start of something great. It was a dream start. We'll keep it going, hopefully, against Sporting Kansas City. But that's it for this episode of the Tonic Takes podcast. Please like, comment, subscribe, share, and we'll see you again soon. Go Quakes!
Go Quakes.